Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen to our recap here of my games with Legend and with ROPS, the games that I was playing for the March OCS. It's been a little while since I played the game, so I had to go back and kind of re-look at my notes, rewatch some of the videos to remember kind of the things I wanted to say, but we're going to start with Legend here. And one of the things that, so I guess for those that are not aware, so Legend is the Episode 8 objective. It's based around the Acto system, which is essentially a system where no player can battle or force drain. So Luke goes down there to do his own thing and gets left alone. If you leave him there, he can modify power at battles at other sites, but most of the time what's going to happen is you can remove him, place him out of play after a battle gets started if he's on Acto, and then the 7 side becomes active. There is a very powerful once per game effect. Take any card into hand from your force pile. There is also a use one force to deploy Acto location. So if you are playing this game on Gemp, or this deck on Gemp, make sure to be careful that you don't just click the objective and click the ability, because you might use this once per game ability when you mean to use this deploy ability. I know because I did that. But yeah, one of the strengths of the deck, I think, is the very flexible 7 side. So once you do that, and flipping is really straightforward. Initiate a battle, or you don't even have to initiate it. A battle just initiated involving a resistance character, Luke on Acto. So you can place him out of play. It stops weapons fire in that battle, and then after that, immunity attrition is always capped at 5, which can be very helpful if you're dealing with a mains deck that has that extra immunity, or something like the Emperor, Sidious, those types of opposing cards. You can look at the top card of your force and reserve deck and place them in one of those piles. So maybe you can get yourself an extra activation just by moving a card from your reserve deck to your force pile. Maybe the top card of your force pile is something it turns out you need to draw, so you can put it on top of your deck and draw it with 3PO or something like that. You also get a ping, a 1 force, if you just force drain, where you have 2 unique resistance characters, and once per battle you can cancel opponents just on destiny and cause a redraw. So lots of things going on there. A couple things that help you in battle, one that helps you in damage, one that helps you with activation, tracking, manipulation, that sort of thing. So really flexible deck, and that's something that I like. Usually platforms like this, they allow for a little more creativity in deck building. Granted, this one is heavily focused around the resistance, so you're kind of pigeoned in that way. But I think you could take a deck like Legend and build it in a variety of ways. I'm not a great deck builder, so I don't know exactly how, but like maybe you want to max out this like ping damage, or maybe you want to make sure that your opponent is not wiping out your forces. So you could emphasize different parts here. As far as flipping the objective goes, that's actually one thing that is a little bit of a downside, I guess, is that it is limited on a battle happening, which is fairly easy. Battles happen often in Star Wars, but sometimes you do have those matchups where they're down at the audience chamber doing their thing and they're holed up, and if you want to get that flip and start that battle, you might have to sacrifice something or put down a decent enough force that you're not going to get blown out by what they have. So there are situations where it is harder for you to control when you flip. The other thing I really do like is that it does capture that feel of the feel of reenacting the film, and I think that's always important for Star Wars CCG. That was one of my favorite things that drew me to the game, right, is that you could reenact those moments, and it felt like you were playing out the moments from the film. And here that theme is very prevalent. One thing I learned about this deck specifically when I'm playing the deck, a couple times I delayed pulling Luke. So the site that you can start with can download Luke here, but sometimes I was using my force for other things, and you do need to have him on Acto when this battle triggers in order to flip. And so a couple times I could have flipped, but I didn't have Luke down, or I felt like I better put Luke down in case a battle happens. So playing Luke early, probably even on your first turn, he only costs 3 force. You might as well get him down unless there's something you really need to draw on that force pile. So that when you do get that chance to flip, you are ready for it. And then you can really start fighting and start battling. The other thing that I'm still not sure of, I seem to think that you want to do this right away because you have all these bonuses on the 7 side, and actually force projection as well is tied to Luke being out of play, and this is a very powerful effect. So I always, the first chance I got, did it, but I wonder if there's value to keeping him here and subtracting. The 2 seems like it's small enough that it's not worth it, but it'd be interesting to hear what people think about that. Something I learned in general during my matchups, I got to play against the Sypha Flip deck, which is the new Set Your Course deck, which doesn't just use it as an activation platform, but actually does the objective and gets the retrieval from the destroyers. I learned that you can't let them drain at the Death Star because they get a bunch of bonuses there, especially if they have the Steadfast, the Episode 7 ship, which equalizes icons, as I got bombed for a massive drain. I think it was 5. As it equalized the icons to 3, and then there was 2 bonuses. So be careful. Don't just let them sit at the Death Star and drain. Make sure that you can contest them there. And then another thing that I learned in some of these games is that I really need to focus on like mapping out actually what is going to happen in a battle, like not just looking at a battle going, yeah, it looks like I'm favored, let's initiate. There was a couple times where I didn't think about, okay, if I don't draw a destiny of 5 or more, I won't get anything to attrition, and then if they do, I'm going to be at a huge disadvantage. Then they can battle into me, and so is it worth battling, or is it better to just sit there and let it happen? Those things were things that I need to spend a little bit more time thinking about. One other thing, I talked in one of the videos about using Darklighter Spin and having it in the OA deck as a one-of, even when there's nothing to pull. And here, you are pulling the Falcon with it, so at least there's one thing to pull. But over the course of more games that I've played, I've been told and instructed, and people have informed me, which is excellent. The community is a great resource, and I appreciate all the help they give. That this lost part of the card has a very interesting interaction with the limiting effects, effects like Imperial Command or Rebel Leadership, and effects like the sand. Sorry, limiting effects as in limiting rulebook effects, and then limiting effects as in effect cards like the sand cards. Whereas this, since you are substituting a number for a destiny, it does not count as drawing. So if you were able to draw 2, but you were limited to 1, you can substitute the first one and then draw a second one. So this lost effect is very, very powerful, and the used portion is, handy, but this is the real the meat of the card right here. And so that's why you see it as a one-of in the OA deck, is to get around those situations where they've got a Falcon that would normally draw 2 or more, and then it gets limited to 1, so then they could use the Dark Lighter spin to get back to 2 Destiny. So yeah, that's Legend. I like the deck. I like playing with the powered up Ray. I mean, it's really hard to get away from the base Ray because she's so good. 4, deploy 7, use pile pull, draw every turn. So yeah, it's tough to say that you want to give that up to play Jedi Ray. But she's very strong as well. You get the retrieval, you get the lightsaber pull onto her, so you don't need to play the effect Saitor, Kalfas. The immunity attrition 5, not as strong maybe as some people would like for a character that you are really going to want to stick on the board. So she can't really sit there by herself, except that you do have the force protection, so that can get you out of a jam where you would be losing her to attrition. So the first time they come down for her, as long as you're holding that force protection, you can probably make her stick and then drop some reinforcements. So yeah, that was Legend and Bastion's deck from the Outrider Cup series. Really enjoyed it. I guess it is worth mentioning that there is you do get these bonuses here. So her Destiny draws, Battle Destiny, Power Forfeit. They don't get extra Destiny when they're with her, right? So, and this allows her to be played. Normally, you wouldn't be able to play Jedi. Play Jedi while a Jedi on the table. So this lets you have her down while Luke is down as well, which is good. It's important for the deck. Also, again, you get to play the Brave Resistance. We talked about how strong that is. Same kind of interrupt package. There's lots of things here that they're going to want to grab. So yeah, very good deck. Enjoyed playing it. The other deck that I played for these 3 games was ROPS. This was Joe Olsen's build for the Outrider Cup. And one of the huge advantages of ROPS is that 2 of the biggest cards that Lightside uses to limit damage are Menace Fades and the Escape Pod combo card, because a lot of Darkside decks use create damage in a way that Escape Pod stops, or through bonuses. And ROPS is immune to both of those, or essentially ROPS doesn't count on either of those things for damage. So you're automatically probably 2 or 3 dead cards in the opponent's deck just by playing ROPS, which is nice as a meta call for the moment. It's also very good at disrupting the opponent's plans if they are playing any kind of deck where they are trying to set up an objective and flip. So OA or Diplo or No Idea, those types of decks, because once they have some Imperials down on Raltier and they're flipped, not only are you limiting their drain bonuses and their damage capacity, but you also can trade really effectively. You can drop one guy that draws Battle Destiny, even this little pud here, Sim Alu. You draw a Destiny of, let's say it's 4 on average, you get another 3 or 4 on top of it. your power goes high enough that with your forfeit, unless they're reducing your forfeit to 0, you're probably not taking any battle damage, and your 7 attrition, you're probably trading 2 characters for it. So they can trade very effectively in battles against those types of decks, make it hard for those decks to control their locations. I guess I should show you here what it does. You just start with the rel tier system, so it can be a little bit slow going to get set up, but you have enough pulls, especially with the new helper that lets you pull Iradu. So usually you're getting, one of these sites, a Docking Bay and Iradu on your first turn. So you do get that activation going quickly. You also get the extra generation, and your opponent does not, because it cancels Unita. Once you have your 3 rel tier sites, pretty simple. Force drains for opponent -1, total battle destiny plus X. X is the number of rel tier locations your Imperials occupy. So you need to play Imperials, which is fine. It also gives you access to domination, which is a good way to make sure you're not drawing bad destinies. You've got a decent little space package here in the Emperor's Shuttle, which is immune to attrition, gets the bonus destiny. Marjade the Decimator, any pilot is going to draw those 2 destiny, which are going to get the bonus from the objective. So it's going to be really tough to knock them out of space. And then you can have the walkers to hide in against weapons down on the ground if you need to, if you have some Jedi, come after you. That said, I think it is a little bit weak to mains, which is unfortunate because it is one of the kind of preeminent light side decks right now. At the time that I was playing this, Kwai Muning, Yo Muning were decks that were everywhere. And if they just decide to deploy some characters to rel tier before you can get set up, it is really hard to remove them without being flipped. And so, that can slow you down, take some extra time, and then they can put pressure on you while you're trying to do that. One thing I did really like about playing the deck is the Insignificant Rebellion. Swapping cards in it or your lost pile, it always feels bad when you lose a card that you need, and that's never really an issue with this deck. And it also lets you reuse these really powerful lost effects, which forces your opponent to grab something that they might not otherwise grab, right? So they're going to grab your close call, so then your commands are going to stick, right? Or they might grab your Gick, so then you can keep reducing their attrition and getting the close call back. The downside to that, and the one thing that I learned I need to be much better at, is tracking my lost pile. And I encountered this before with the solo as well, not knowing what interrupts is in there to play. Almost every game that I've ever played, aside from Star Wars, and every game I've played in the past 10-15 years, you can look at your lost pile. It's open information, and so never really had to keep track of what was in there for to later dig them out or play them or whatnot. So that's something I need to improve at overall. As for something I learned about piloting the deck, there is a fair amount of moving parts. Like, you think, oh yeah, it's straightforward. You get Imperials down to rel tier and you flip and you reduce their drains and you do drains and you win the war of attrition. But a lot of decisions about playing interrupts, when to swap, when to go down and deploy, especially in certain decks. You don't want to leave yourself vulnerable early. When are you going to space and concentrating your resources there? I found it more difficult to pilot than I anticipated. So it is something that takes a little bit of, as with any deck, it takes a little bit of practice. Um, One thing that I learned in general is that I really need to stop kind of guessing or assuming if decks are playing space or not playing space. I think in one of these games I just threw a binder down or some ship that didn't draw Destiny, thinking, oh, they're playing light side mains, they're not gonna have space, you know. And mistakes like that can be costly. So I think and it did end up, you know, costing me the game in one situation. So I think, you know, there are certain situations where that's warranted. Maybe if you're in a bad spot and you just have to gamble, but I think in situations like that I need to just slow down, play a little safer, you know, give myself time, make sure I don't lose the game on the spot by just hoping that they don't have ships. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed the kind of review here of ROPS and Legend. Hope it helps you with your learning of these decks and your playing, and if you have any tips on these decks, feel free to post them in the comments. Until next time, may the Force be with you.